Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into cybersecurity compliance. We'll be using the source materials you shared to figure out what it actually is, why it's so incredibly important, and maybe most critically, how you build a program that, works. Okay, first things first. Let's nail down this distinction because it causes a lot of confusion. Compliance and security. They're related, but definitely not the same thing. The sources are clear. Compliance is that auditable minimum.
Yeah.
It's about following the specific laws, the regulations you have to follow.
Right, whereas security is more like the risk-based maximum. It's adaptive. It's about reducing actual risk, not just ticking boxes. They overlap, sure, but thinking they're identical is a mistake.
A big mistake.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, I think, is how compliance feeds into the business itself. It's not just this legal burden. It really underpins trust with customers. It makes high-value sales possible. It's essential for partnerships and, honestly, just for basic operational resilience. Because it forces you to, document things, maintain controls in a repeatable way.
That makes sense. So beyond just building trust, let's talk about the risks, the why it matters. Getting this wrong. Well, the stakes are incredibly high, aren't they? It feels like it could genuinely sink a company.
Oh, absolutely. The consequences can be immediate and severe. You're looking at aggressive enforcement actions. Take GDPR, for example. The sources mentioned fines up to $20 million.
Wow.
Or, and this is the kicker, 4% of your global annual revenue. That's not pocket change. That can be a business-ending event, and that's often before you even factor in the inevitable lawsuits that follow.
Right, the follow-on costs.
Exactly. And who needs to worry? Well, it really depends on the kind of data you're handling, where you operate your industry. If you're in healthcare, finance, defense, retail, basically, if you touch regulated data, you are definitely in the compliance game.
Okay. So digging into that a bit more, you immediately hit this alphabet soup of different regulations. Let's maybe touch on some of the big ones mentioned in the source material, like GDPR in the EU seems huge, all about having a lawful reason to process data subject rights, and that really tight 72-hour window for reporting breaches.
Yep, that 72-hour notification is notoriously challenging. Then in the U.S., you've got HIPAA for health information. That demands specific administrative, physical, and technical safeguards.
And those business associate agreements, the BAAs?
Absolutely mandatory if vendors handle protected health information for you. And then there's PCI DSS for anyone touching credit card data.
Yes, the payment card standard.
Right. It covers things like network segmentation, encryption,
Yeah.
and it actually has different requirement levels based on how many transactions you process per year.
Okay.
And connecting this back, well, those are often the mandatory things the regulatory stick. A lot of organizations also lean on frameworks like ISO 27001 or ANSO C2.
Right, those aren't laws necessarily.
Not always laws, no, but they provide a structure. And often they give you that third-party attestation, that proof point that your partners or big customers demand to see. It builds that trustworthiness we talked about.
Got it. So, okay, how do you actually do this? How do you turn this pile of requirements into something real, something that's, continuously working? What's the program look like?
Well, it absolutely has to be treated like a proper business system. Continuous, governed. It really starts with governance. You need clear ownership, maybe an executive steering committee.
Okay.
Then you build out your regulatory inventory, what actually applies to you. And from there, you do a gap analysis. This is key. You map every single requirement to your existing controls, and then you test if those controls are actually working effectively. That's often where things fall down.
I could see that.
And then, crucially, it's about operating and improving. It has to be continuous. This means monitoring, maybe using tools like a SIM for security information and event management, getting that real-time visibility.
Right, seeing what's happening.
Exactly. And measuring, using KPIs, key IRIs, key risk indicators, things like how long it takes your teams to fix findings from audits. And speaking of audits, you need regular internal and external audits to keep everything honest and drive remediation.
And those incident response timelines you mentioned, they seem terrifyingly different. GDPR 72 hours versus HIPAA potentially allowing up to 60 days.
Yeah, depending on the specifics for HIPAA, but the contrast is stark. If you're leading incident response, you absolutely need that playbook dialed in. You cannot rely on luck when regulators come knocking. You need proof of control.
Definitely not. So wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you, the listener? What's the kind of bottom line action item from all this source material?
I think the main takeaway is stop treating compliance like just a paperwork drill or a once-a-year panic before the audit. You have to treat it like a core business system, governed, measured, always improving. Its purpose is to maintain and prove trustworthiness over time.
Right. Treat it like a real system.
Yeah.
And okay, maybe 2 practical checklist items that jumped out from the sources. First, build that detailed requirements matrix. You know,
Mhm.
law or standard maps to your control, maps to an owner, maps to the evidence you'll show.
What's central?
Second, really formalize your vendor risk management, your third parties, because if they mess up with your data, the liability, well, it often lands right back on you.
Absolutely, a critical point. And maybe one final thought for the future. Harmonization is becoming key, this idea of mapping controls once and then generating evidence for multiple regulations or standards. That's about efficiency.
Makes sense.
But looking ahead, you also need to keep an eye on emerging areas. Things like AI accountability and ethics frameworks are coming. And preparing for the transition to quantum-safe cryptography, there will be timelines for that. Compliance never really stands still.
Always something new on the horizon. Thanks, that was a great deep dive.